The Ability Performance Chart compares MAP and COGAT scores and COGAT and STAR scores. This report is used in grade levels where students have COGAT scores. To access the Ability Performance Chart, in the top, click on the Apps icon next to your name, then select Reports. In the center of the page, scroll down until you see Plano Assessments. In the orange box, under Combined Assessments, you're going to choose Ability Performance Chart. It is the second option in the orange box. From here, you will have the option to see your individual teacher class, or if you have full campus access in EdGence, you can choose to see an entire grade level at a time. You also have the option of filtering by any of these student groups at the top of the page. Click the green box with the white arrow to run the report. Here you see the Ability Performance Chart. You'll notice at the top you have reading, math, science, and language usage. It defaults to showing reading, which is looking at STAR reading and comparing that to COGAT verbal, and MAP reading and comparing that to COGAT verbal. If we look at the bottom chart, on the horizontal axis, we see COGAT verbal scores. With COGAT, the average is 100, so that is right in the middle. You'll notice that there are 5 columns here. This center column is the average range for COGAT. These are the students who have an average cognitive ability as measured by COGAT verbal. The range below that is below average, and then we have very low. On the other side, we have above average and very high. On the vertical axis, in this case, we're looking at MAP reading scores as measured by the RIT scale. Each of the dots that you see here represents a student, and their dot is placed where their MAP score and their COGAT score intersect each other. What we're looking for here is consistent performance across multiple assessments. We expect that if a student has a very high cognitive ability according to COGAT, that their achievement as measured by MAP should be high as well, and vice versa. When we see a discrepancy, a difference between a student's cognitive ability and their achievement, those are students we want to pay attention to. Those are students we need to dig a little bit more deeply into to find out why might there be a difference. Now you'll notice in this example that some dots are green where most are blue. If a dot is green, that means one of their test events was taken in a different season than everyone else. So you would want to interpret that student's data with a little bit of caution because they may have taken MAP at a different time than everyone else in your data set. If most of our students have consistent performance across multiple assessments, we will see that appear here as a diagonal of dots from the bottom left to the top right. And those dots will make up a nice diagonal line for us. When you see a dot that falls out of this pattern, either above or below, that indicates a difference between their measured ability according to COGAT and their measured achievement according to MAP. So if I wanted to see a particular student more closely, I can hover my mouse over a dot, and this will show me who the student is, their MAP score, their STAR score, and their COGAT score. Note that these are not actual PISD students. This is a demonstration environment. So looking at this particular dot, I can see that this student has above average verbal ability according to COGAT. However, if I look at their MAP score in comparison to other dots around them, other students who have similar COGAT scores, this MAP score is lower than what I would expect. So this tells me there's a difference between the student's ability and their achievement, what I'm seeing in the classroom. And I need to make sure I know why that's happening. There could be many good reasons why there's a discrepancy there, but we need to make sure we know why it's happening and that we're addressing it. We can see these kinds of differences in student performance on the high end of the scale as well as the low end of the scale. You can also zoom in closer to see how a group of students is doing. You have a magnifying glass in the bottom corner, and when you click on that magnifying glass, you can draw a box. And the graph will change. It will zoom in to just show the group of students that you've selected. Here I'm looking at just students who have an average cognitive ability in the verbal domain. And you can see the differences in their map. I have students down here close to maybe 190, 195 in their MAP score. And I have students that are way up here, almost at 240 in their MAP score. So I have a pretty big spread of achievement for students who have a average cognitive ability. And that's something that I might want to dig into a little bit more deeply. To find out who these students are, I just uncheck that magnifying glass and I can hover my mouse to see who those students are. And then I can click on the home screen to go back to where I was. Notice that the same is true for the star information at the top. We have COGAT on the horizontal axis, and this time we're comparing it to star reading, but it's the same idea. Looking for those dots that fall out of the pattern, either below or above, to see students who may have a discrepancy between ability and achievement. If I go over to math, we are now comparing MAP Math and STAR Math to the COGAT quantitative score. And you see how the pattern of dots changes. Again, we're still looking for that diagonal, but as you can tell, when we get to the upper end of COGAT, this particular group of students is much more spread out in their achievement. There's much more difference from one student to another in their achievement, even though they have very similar cognitive abilities. If you click on Science, you'll see MAP Science compared to COGAT Nonverbal. And then you'll see language usage scores also compared to COGAT verbal scores. Below, you will see a table of data, and this mirrors the student assessment history data that we looked at earlier. There are lots of ways to use the ability performance chart to guide your instructional decisions. Please contact the assessment department. We'd be happy to help you learn more.